On today's Instant Reaction, Andy and Ari on 3 presented by Modelo. We are here. We are watching the Oregon game just like you. We decided to go live at halftime because we know you don't want to watch anymore. This is not entertaining. And the point is an entertainment product. So we're going to talk about, are the changes that are already agreed upon for 2026 and the ones that are going to get argued about over the next few weeks, are they enough to reduce the number of boring games? Because we have fewer boring games this year than last year, but they can still have fewer. Also, we talk Miami's win at Texas A&M. We talk more about Alabama's win at Oklahoma. We talk about the quarterfinal matchups, which do look highly non-boring, Ari. Plus, Michigan is still searching for a football coach. Kenny Dillingham is staying at Arizona State. He's asking for $20 million checks. We got a lot to talk about. We'll do it all on today's Andy and Ari on 3, presented by BetMGM and Modelo. We are presented by BetMGM. We use BetMGM lines and totals. And you can join us by joining BetMGM. If you have not signed up for BetMGM yet, use the bonus code CFB, as in college football, CFB, and you'll get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how that works. Download the BetMGM app and sign on using the bonus code CFB. Deposit at least $10 to place your first wager on any game. You'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure you use the bonus code CFB when you're signing up. So download the app, deposit at least $10, place your first wager, up to $1,500 if your first bet loses. Use the bonus code CFB when you sign up. Make this college football season one for the history books. Make it legendary with BetMGM. See BetMGM.com for terms. 21 plus only. U.S. promotional offers are not available in New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER in the U.S. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369 in New York. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP in Arizona. Call 1-800-327-5050 in Massachusetts. Call 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa or 1-800-981-0023 in Puerto Rico. First bet offer for new customers only, subject to eligibility requirements. Rewards are non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire in 7 days in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Don't forget, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use the bonus code CFB and get your $1,500 first bet offer today. Welcome to an instant reaction edition of Andy and Ari on 3. The first time we've ever done this is a halftime show, Ari.
First time?
I think so.
I think we've gone live prematurely before.
I mean, this never happened to me before.
It's never happened in the play. It's never happened to you before as we're sitting in a hotel room. Andy. All right, so let's just get into it.
Yeah,
this isn't a football game.
I'm arguing with people, with coworkers, and this is not a game. This is not interesting. The point of the college football playoff is it's an entertainment product, and what we're watching in Eugene is awful and shouldn't be on our televisions.
Yeah, so when Casey Smith was on this week, I think she made a perfect point, and I 100% agree with her. And like, you are like the tactical, you understand how things work and what's will get somebody sued or whether it can happen.
Yep.
The way it should be is this. They should give a guaranteed spot in the playoff to the 4 power conference champions.
Okay.
And if it's a 5-loss Duke,
ACC,
then so be it.
Big 10, Big 12,
Big
SEC.
12,
Okay.
And those are the 4 guaranteed.
Right.
You don't ice the G5 out.
Right.
But you make them earn an at-large spot on their merits.
So is there a minimum threshold where they have to be ranked?
I think they have to be ranked in the field like anybody else who's in that.
So they need to be a top 12 team.
And yes, so it'd be much more difficult.
So like Boise State would have made it last year.
But Boise would have made it last year. Cincinnati would have made it before. They're still included in the system. And Andy, we talk so much about the eye test, and we can tell when there's a G5 team that's capable of competing. I'm not even saying wait till a G5 team can win the national title. That's never going to happen. But a G5 team, like, I thought that Boise played a respectable game
against Penn State.
Absolutely.
Penn State. Yeah.
Like a team that this is like, and I know that it's abused and it's kind of funny to say, but like, it's a safety hazard. They're not even playing a game. Like they're
not playing the same sport.
Yeah, it's men versus boys out there.
Yeah.
And I know, like, part of this too is inclusion. But I posed this question on Twitter, and I want to get your take on this. And it's the same question I always. Would a G5 fan rather win the Group of 5 national title and play in their own tournament and win it all amongst them?
I take it back to what we asked that question of Spencer Danielson, the Boise State coach, and he's like, absolutely no G5 tournament. We want to be in this tournament. We want to prove ourselves. And the thing is, I think you got to prove yourself throughout the season. You got to schedule these teams. Now, it's hard. It's going to be harder to schedule for them to schedule the Power 5 teams or Power 4 teams because the SEC is going to 9 conference games. The ACC is moving to 9 conference games. So it's going to be even harder for them to schedule those teams. So it's becoming more and more of an issue. And look, it may be that at some point that it's just got to be, there's got to be a separation.
But I also think it's a disservice to JMU, who was a really good team this year for their level.
And this is where most people who've watched the JMU game, this is the one they're watching. This is not what you want to put out in front of everybody.
Yeah. And like, I guess being included in the system and the money and all that stuff. If you want to be included in it, that's fine. If you want to prove yourself, that's fine. You can do it without the guarantee. That way we can clean this up a little bit.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know, maybe we go back 2 weeks and include Duke instead because Duke has Power 5 players.
Duke would get killed by Oregon too.
No,
Let's
be
real
but
here.
would it look like that?
Maybe not. They had, Duke
40
has
yards every play.
Duke has a potential NFL quarterback in Darian Mensah, which is different. Yeah. But okay. The wheels are in motion for this to be changed for next year. In fact, the memorandums of understanding have already been signed if there's a 12 or a 14 team playoff next year, which they're going to try to make it 16, but it still may wind up being 12. If it is 12, it has already been agreed upon that what you said, the ACC, Big 10, Big 12, and SEC champs automatically get in. They will have guaranteed spots. Notre Dame will automatically get in if it's in the top 12. So the field this year would have looked different. Now, Notre Dame would have knocked Miami out of the field in that case, but Duke would have gotten in instead of James Madison.
Right. So
you would have seen pretty much the same situation. You would have Notre Dame playing Texas A&M instead of Miami. But let's go back to last year because they did make changes last year too. They changed the seeding. Last year's first round was more boring than this year's first round. This year we got 2 competitive games. Last year we got 0 competitive games. If they can get it, if it's a 12-team playoff and they can get it to 3 competitive games, that would be an improvement because here's my thing. This is an entertainment product. The goal is to provide entertaining television. You can dress it up any way you want. You can talk about how sacred it is. And I love college football. It's my favorite sport. But I'm not naive. The point of this is for your entertainment, our entertainment, mostly on television.
And I think that the pull to the average fan of the what if a G5 team actually gets a team that's good enough?
Yeah.
What if the G5 team can beat Oregon? And you want to see it, right? You want it to be settled on the field. And I get it. I truly do. We know. In this instance,
we knew before Oregon ever took the field against James Madison. Why? Because Oregon has how many NFL players on its team? How many players on Oregon's roster will make NFL rosters?
I don't know, 25,
30,
yeah,
40 by the time
50?
All said and done? Right. How many JMU players will make NFL rosters? 5?
I think that's
maybe.
That's a
It's not basketball.
Generous guess. Yeah.
It's not basketball. And just like I said all along when we were arguing about how the college football playoff should be formatted and, even before there was a playoff, comparing it to basketball, and this was built on a little bit on what the basketball tournament looks like. It's not the same thing. In basketball, there are 5 players. There's a chance the mid-major has one player who's better than some of the other 5
or some
starters.
Random guy who goes 9 for 13
right,
from the 3.
Who just bombs away from 3. Or I always bring up when Butler made the final game against Duke. Gordon Hayward was the best player on the floor, and he played for Butler.
Yeah.
That's never going to happen in football.
And you know what else is happening?
Or if you have the best player, the other team has the next 21 best.
And like, even if you go back 5 years ago, Khalil Mack doesn't finish his career at Buffalo.
Right. The way
that's the other thing too. Like
now,
even if the G5 teams are recruiting at a high level or doing a very good job of evaluation and development, it's a financially impossible mountain to climb to retain those really good players. So like, I mean, like on one hand, I want a JMU fan to be engaged in the system. I want them to be engaged in our show. I want them to believe that their team is worthy.
And I'm going to watch their games during the season. Like, I watch Sunbelt games and Conference USA games and MAC games and American games. Like, I thoroughly enjoyed the American race this year that put Tulane in the playoff against Ole Miss. But that doesn't mean I wanted to see Tulane Ole Miss for a second time this season, because I know what happened the first time.
Yeah. And like, maybe you're a JMU fan and you're like, you know, we knew this was going to happen tonight, but we were a part of the system. It was great to be included. We made the playoff. We can always say that we made the playoff. And maybe they already won their championship. Maybe this is their banner. Yeah. And that's okay. But if this is your banner, it's also coming at the expense of everybody else who's watching it.
Yeah.
So like it's just
and basically they punted on the second half of the first round this year. And they've got to figure out how to deal with it, how to have a situation where even if they're going against NFL games, maybe they just say we're going to put the good game against the NFL game. But this is
but it's not a time block issue.
The fact that the best game started at noon Eastern, and they just shunted the other two games when they sub-licensed them to Turner, and they shunted them there and said, well, Commanders, Eagles, and Bears, Packers can't compete with that. Like, that's defeatist.
Yeah. And also, it's still a more valuable product to punt to those play. You still would have, if you had a more compelling game, people would be switching back and forth. People would be watching on the iPad. Like, people want to watch compelling college games. I don't care if the NFL is on. And I think that people are conflating today's viewing experience in totality with the NFL scheduling system. The problem is
it can do whatever it wants.
And it's also not when the games are on. It's that the games, 2 of the 3 games sucked. Now, I take exception, Andy, and we'll get to this.
Yeah.
That the first game sucked. I thought the first game was awesome.
The first game was great. It was competitive. There were 100,000 buttholes puckered in Kyle Field for 3 hours. It was great.
Maybe even one of the more memorable games I've ever covered, because it was so fun. Everybody was enjoying it. Like, Miami was running a bunch of psychopath plays. Like, it was a great college football game that ended, it was exciting at the end, especially.
Mr. Reds 44 with a great point. Indiana's makeup of stars looks more like Tulane and JMU, but they've assembled talent. Well, also, the reason JMU is not competitive against Oregon
all their good players are on Indiana's
roster.
The
best players from JMU play for Indiana.
Yeah. And like, maybe 5 years ago, they would still have D'Angelo Pons on their team. And that would be a really good, maybe that
and Elijah Surratt.
Yeah, and they wouldn't have guys that are getting burned by 30 yards on go routes.
Yeah.
But, it looks like they're running through 7-on-7 out there. So, congratulations to Oregon. I'm happy they fixed last year, because like Ohio State, I think in this bracket would have played Tulane in the first round they would have played JMU in the first round and then had a bye, faced Tulane, who would have had a bye in this bracket. So that would have been Ohio State for those first 2 games.
Yeah, Tulane would have had a bye. That would have been hideous.
Yeah. So like maybe this is a year by year, like, fix what's wrong with it type of deal. I don't know.
I would prefer that they just did top 12, or if they go to 16, just top 16, but the leagues don't want that. Like, the ACC doesn't want that. The Big 12 doesn't want that. I would like it if you just said, you know what? If we're going to have 16 teams in the playoff, we trust that we're going to get one in.
And I also want to address this too. I think there's this notion that if a G5 is not guaranteed a spot, that the committee will go out of their way to screw them. And I just don't think that's
they will.
True.
I mean, Boise was Boise State was the number 9 team, I think, in the final ranks.
And Boise also had a Heisman Trophy finalist on their team.
And we're like, if Boise State gets in an 8-9 game, now with Ohio State as the 8, that would have been, but Ohio State would not have been the 8 with the seeding rules the way they are now.
Yeah.
If that Boise State team got in an 8-9 game, I bet it would be a competitive 8-9 game.
I don't remember the Penn State game last year. Was it like 20? What was, you remember the
score? It was kind of a mushing. It was like what our friends Dan and Ty from Solid Verbal will call crock pot.
It wasn't
game.
A 70-6 type deal like we're watching right now, though. So, I feel like everybody's kind of on the same page here.
Yeah.
And like, there's a group of national reporters, God love them, who have covered and keep precious the that I'm arguing with right now. And Shahan, I don't want to
Jay Raja,
no, I don't want to like, I'm not trying to shit on you here. I love what you do.
I'm arguing via text with Stephen Godfrey, who I co-host another show with, and we'll hash it out on the show tomorrow. But like, the point of this is it's an entertainment product, and this was not entertaining.
And I also appreciate the coverage and the, keeping of mind of other, because, these coaches come from big time coaches come from G5.
I will still love watching the sport. You can define its champions however you want. I will still love watching those teams play. I have always loved, for me, like, the personal part of it for me. Like my mom loved college football, and I've told you guys these stories before, but my mom passed away 19 years ago. Loved college football. She was an Alabama grad, so you think, oh, power conference. No, she loved the Tide when they played, but she had a Tuesday night team, and that was the Toledo Rockets. She loved Boise State. Like she loved any football game that was on, and I loved watching any college football game that is on. I don't necessarily think you have to send the lambs to the slaughter in a situation like this to validate them. I think I would love watching them. Like Montana and Montana State played today in a rematch of a regular season game in the FCS playoffs.
And what do we talk about in the car on the way here?
Yeah, that we'd love to cover a Brawl of the Wild. Like it's still awesome, but it can be awesome in its own way. You don't have to try to make it like this other thing. What we saw at Kyle Field today is not the same thing.
Yeah, period. I mean, I think I would like to lift weights more consistently. I don't think I need to be in a bodybuilding competition. There's
Right.
there's different levels to everything. It doesn't mean that people, can't enjoy the thing for what it is. And honestly, too, the increase in the amount of people who are gambling and watching these games from that perspective also, I think, keeps people engaged as well. If Toledo is the only game that's on Tuesday and people want to bet, people are going to bet and they're going to watch it and they're going to be engaged because they're fun games to watch.
Yeah.
So, it is the elephant in the room, but I think most people can see the elephant.
Yeah. And I think if you're making an honest argument, then you understand, in your heart of hearts, you're not entertained by this.
And we don't have to pretend like they are something that they're not to protect them either.
Yeah. They still have a good product. They still get lots of people out to their games. Like,
it's still fun.
Yeah. They still have TV networks paying to televise their games.
And will continue to pay.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, do you think that if they had their own, like if the G5 had their own playoff, that they would be a pretty compelling television product? Or?
I would watch it. But again, I will refer you back to Spencer Danielson from Boise State, who I believe his opinions are held by everybody else there. They want to be a part of this. And they're getting free money from this, by the way.
But it's also not the right program to use as the example either.
Right.
Because Boise is the most consistent.
Because they're
G5
the ones that consistently produce teams that could be competitive in this tournament.
Yeah. Why don't we go call like the Raging Cajuns and see how they feel about it?
Right.
Let's call, not the team that has traditionally been the closest to breaking through the barrier.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But I get why it's frustrating for them. And I understand, because you want to be part of that and you feel like you've been shut out systemically, and you have. And now but you see why. And that's why.
Yeah. And we talk so much about the investment piece of this and what it takes to actually build a roster, what it takes to, especially now.
Yeah.
The type of money that you have to have funneling into your program to even feel the. Andy, we're going to talk about this on the show. The head coach of Arizona State stood outside like a town hall meeting and begged his fans to donate today.
Begged somebody to stroke a $20 million check.
That's a power conference team.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So, maybe that's the call. I don't know. But that I think we're all in agreement here. And if you're not, and you want them to be a part of it, Andy and I aren't even saying that you can't be.
No,
I think we're just saying
meet a certain threshold,
and you can join. And you know what? I enjoyed covering like hell that Cincinnati Alabama game, and Cincinnati played them really well.
Cincinnati was awesome. Would Cincinnati Cincinnati's in a power conference now, but let's say Cincinnati was back in the American. Would they be able to keep that level of talent on their roster in this era? I don't know. That's another question.
I don't know.
So that's all part of this. And we'll talk, because we're going to talk about the Michigan coaching search later. We'll talk about Dillingham. We're going to get into all that, because I do think this era is different, and it is just it may just not be possible anymore.
And I hope that we get to a point where the annual tradition, because we were sitting in Columbus, Ohio a year ago at this time.
Yeah.
Talking about how bad the first round was. I just want to get out of that.
You and I personally attended 2 first-round games,
and they were awesome.
That were fun as hell.
Yeah.
Fun as hell. And I get that people are like, well, there were no points in that Texas A&M Miami, but there were 100,000 people at Kyle Field and millions more watching on TV who were completely puckered up.
And they cheered like hell when they missed field goals, man.
Especially that
loud
doink.
In there. Yeah, that doink.
The doink was the loudest doink I think I've ever heard in my life.
So, anyway, maybe that's a good transition to the game that we covered.
Well, before we do that, I do want to say everybody here deserves a Modelo. raise your Modelo, crack a Modelo, and let's go. Because you can stay game day ready all season long. It doesn't matter what team you root for. It doesn't matter what level you root for. Modelo is the official beer of the college football playoff. It's also the official beer of sitting there and watching football. Because I will tell you, one of the most joyous moments of my season, Ari, was sitting with you in Detroit on Black Friday.
That was a great day.
Drinking Modelo's, watching college football in all its glory. And I don't think there's any better companion for the games than a beautiful Modelo. So grab yourself one, crack one open, stay game day ready all season long. Thank you so much to Modelo for helping us this season, sponsoring us this season. It's been a pleasure. Now, Ari,
and just so you guys know, too, we're going to be watching the second half of this game. So if JMU goes on a 27-0 run like Alabama, we will.
It'll be the greatest show we've ever done.
Yeah.
Greatest show we've ever done.
Yeah, because the freezing cold takes could just run the first 20 minutes of the show, I think, if that happened, right?
Yeah.
27-0 run we did see yesterday.
We did. Was it 27?
Yes.
Yeah, it was 27.
It was.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, Alabama went down 17-0, and we thought they were dead, and they came back. Miami, we weren't sure was even going to get in this thing, and it went and beat the team that had been at the front of the SEC for most of the season.
And if JMU goes on a 27-0 run, they will still be losing. Okay.
Bad at Math podcast. Yes. We got that part.
28-0 run.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about the game we were at today, because it was a fascinating game between two teams. And I saw the Notre Dame people complaining. This one you couldn't really complain about. Both these teams beat you on the field. So I get you. You would have enjoyed being in Oxford playing. I would have loved to see Notre Dame Ole Miss in Oxford today.
Yeah.
But I thought Miami, Texas A&M was a fun game. Offensively challenged for sure. But there were a bunch of future NFL athletes on the field. And I think Miami won it. And we were talking to some friends of ours who are Texas A&M people after the game, Ari. And they made a really good point. And they follow this very closely, follow the roster construction very closely. And they said, and I had not thought about it this way, they said Texas A&M needs more first-round picks. They have legitimate NFL players. And this is sort of the opposite problem of the Kevin Sumlin era. Early in the Kevin Sumlin era, they were winning, and they had your, Jake Matthews, your Luke Jokels, your Myles Garrett's, your first-round type picks. But then they would have nobody in rounds 2 through 6, and then they'd have some 7th rounders and undrafted guys. And someone was always like, we got to get the 2nd and 3rd and 4th rounders in here. Now it feels like they've got the 2nd, 3rd, 4th rounders that don't have the top end first round guys. Meanwhile, Miami, like Ruben Bain, probably a first round type guy. Francis Mauigoa, absolutely a first round guy. Malachi Toney's only a freshman. I imagine he'll grow into a first-round guy.
Yeah. I don't know if his size will keep him out, but the point remains he has first-round.
He's unbelievable. Yeah. Bryce Fitzgerald, who had 2 picks today, who's only a freshman, he might grow into that. Akeem Messidor is going out after this year. He might be that. The point is, Miami has a few of those guys, and maybe enough of those guys to compete with Ohio State. We'll find out. Ohio State has a ton of those guys.
Mm-hmm. You know what? I didn't write this in my column, and I wrote it down in my notes, and I just forgot to refer back to it. But when you think about Francis Mauigoa and Ruben Bain, these were legacy recruits from the beginning of the Cristobal era that came to Miami and saw the hard times, remained committed, signed, and have seen this through into year 4.
Yeah.
And you have those 2 bookends as the 2 best players on their team. And then
can you imagine what that's like at practice every day, like 1-on-1 pass pro when it's Mauigoa versus Ruben Bain?
But then on the other side of the coin, you have 2 outstanding freshmen who are also in that category, who are contributing in a big way, both in a touchdown that won the game and a pick that saved the game, that are young and are seeing that tradition through. And then you have a bunch of really good players, like Mark Fletcher is an NFL running back.
Mark Fletcher's awesome.
They have guys. And, we're not even talking about the quarterback that they spent all this money on to transfer in.
I said,
who, by the way,
I got mad at you during the game because you were making fun of the play construction. Because you were right. Shannon Dawson, the OC at Miami, was coming up with ever more intricate ways to get the ball in Malachi Toney.
I thought you were laughing.
I was laughing sort of, but on the inside, I was burning a little bit because I was like, listen, if I had Malachi Tony on my team, I don't care how much I'm paying the other players. I'm just giving him the ball every time.
You want to tell them some of the plays I came up with? They were pretty visionary.
You had some amazing ones.
Yeah.
You had him as the punter at one point. You had him as the holder for a fake field goal.
I thought you could line up the left tackle outside the hashes and then put Malachi Tony behind him and then throw it to the
lateral
it back. They came up with every other. How many grab ass plays did they run in that game? 10?
A lot. And I think I talked to Shannon Dawson after the game. I would think he would argue that a lot of what they were doing was trying to set up Texas A&M for what happened at the end. And you can say, well, why didn't they just do this all along? I think you had to do a little bit of cloak and dagger to get A&M to lighten up the box. So they were doing all these crazy things to get Malachi Tony the ball. And then you get to the last drive and they're just running duo. And for those who don't know, duo is essentially, it's an A gap run. So you're running
in a video game.
Yeah. You're running between the center and the guard, depending, you can pick whichever side you want. But you have basically sets of 2 offensive linemen or offensive tackle and a tight end, but sets of 2 blockers firing off together on whoever's in front of them. And so like they drive a defensive tackle back into a linebacker and then push him back. And it's a very effective play as long as the box isn't heavy. And what they did was essentially force A&M to lighten the box because they didn't know when Tony was going to get the ball. And then they ran duo with Fletcher, and A&M could not stop it. And that's what got the ball down the field. And then, interestingly enough, after they ran duo a bunch of times, they hit that little pop pass to Tony, it's really an end around. Yeah. It's a run, but they call it a pass, and he ends up scoring the touchdown. But I don't know if I buy that whole thing, Andy, because it's 3-3 the entire game, and why didn't you just ram it down their throats?
You're burning possessions because the plays weren't working. Like they ran a bunch of them, and I don't think any of them worked. So, like there was one play where they ran a reverse, and Carson Beck got the ball back somehow.
Now that was awful.
I don't even know what the hell was going on.
That was terrible.
I don't know what the play
one
design
where
was.
Tony gets the ball on a double pass, and he's supposed to throw it. He was looking for one of his fellow receivers. If he'd looked to the left, Carson Beck was wide open.
JMU just scored. That's 6 in a row.
Here comes the 28-0 run.
Yeah.
It's time.
Well, if Oregon, I'm not paying attention close enough because it's on the iPad.
By the way, what happens if JMU wins? Do we have to go back and erase the first 20 minutes of the show?
No, you run it.
Because then we'll be like, this is the greatest thing of all time.
I don't know this because it's on a small iPad over there, and we've both been up for basically 24 straight hours. But if the backups are in, no, Dylan Thieneman's right there.
No, they're not. The backups are not in. So,
but there's a cover to be had out here too. I don't want to forget this is a 20-point cover.
I love how Ari locks in on his real priorities.
Yeah, well, it is. I mean, I'm just saying, like it's a 20-point spread here, and we can't go into this half playing grab ass. We've got money to print. But I thought that this was a really important day for Miami.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this is the right or wrong way to think about this, but I think about who does this mean more to? And I think a lot of times you kind of base it on which fan base has gone longer without having glory in terms of like, how do you rank who needs this win more?
Well, A&M needed it probably more than anybody because A&M's never gotten in that club. Miami's got 5 national titles.
But here's how I view it. Do you like your coach?
Mm-hmm.
And how long has that coach been employed? That's how I view it.
That's fair.
So like from this standpoint, like Miami was in year 4 in a critical season with Mario Cristobal to break through and do something it hadn't done yet to, the word, I don't know, we're not to validate. And it's been used for multiple ways.
So Ari, let's hear from Mario Cristobal. Yeah. You asked him about the build. What did Mario Cristobal say about what this means for what Miami's building? Here's what he said.
Mario, to make the playoff is one statement. To win a game in the playoff in advance is another statement. What does this mean for the overall build of Miami football in terms of where you're headed, in the future? And do you take stock of milestone?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think it's important. I think it was important first to get in the playoff. Then to go and win at a place like this, right? 100,000+ people on the road, a team that was arguably top 2 or 3 until their last game, and to get it done in this type of an environment. I think that we needed that. if you could draw it up how we wanted it, we wanted to go there. We wanted to come here and do it against a great football team. So what does it mean for us? Continued progress, the vision, and we would never alter the course or deter from, despite all the challenges that come with it. But that's part of it. So again, really proud of our players. It's all about them and that staff, because again, 40 plus days ago, we were lower than low, and found a way to just bring a different level of energy every single day and lift each other and the program up. And here we are with a chance to keep playing, and that's all that matters now. 1-0.
1-0. Uh-oh, we lost our light. That's just how.
Blinded by the light.
That's all right. You
Roll it up. Yeah, so what I was saying before, guys, as I'm sitting alone here and I feel weird, is that I judge based on how long the coach has been in his position. It's not how starved is the fan base.
Right.
It's how quickly does a coach need a result in order to validate their existence in their job. Right. And I think that given the fact that Mario Cristobal is 2 years further along in his build of Miami, it's more understandable that Miami would win this game. They needed it more. And like Elko has a really good team and a core of players, and they have a blueprint that is pretty easily followed. I mean, it might take a few pen strokes. I don't know.
I think they can be back here next year, and really it will depend on how they do in the portal, how they develop the younger players they have. Like, this is not that complicated. And you look at Miami, they've improved through the portal. They've grabbed quarterbacks through the portal the last couple of years, but they've still done really well recruiting out of high school and developing those players. Like Francis Mauigoa and Ruben Bain are guys who signed with Miami out of high school who are going to be very high NFL draft picks and who are dominant college football players.
I know that the recruiting era is different and the way that they go about doing things now and roster assembly is different. But Andy, you cannot understate the importance of what it means to be cool to kids in Miami.
Oh yeah.
It's been 2 decades. It's the biggest, like we said this in the reaction video. It's been 2 decades since Miami has had a win this big. That is basically a century in the minds of the players and the people in that area of the country since they were a really nationally relevant team. And like being able to prove that again, to win a playoff game, to make the playoff, to get to this point, to show those recruits that Miami is a destination for you out of high school.
Yeah.
And they have the money to pay. It's not like anyone's doing anyone a favor.
Right.
They don't have to leave. They don't have to go to Bama. They don't have to go to Florida. In-state up north. They don't have to go to Texas. They don't have to go to Ohio State to compete at the highest level. And I thought this was a monumental win.
Well, we're going to see them compete against Ohio State because that is, in terms of talent, that is the highest level. Now, we've already seen Indiana beat Ohio State, so it's not like Ohio State is unbeatable. It's not like they are that much more talented than everybody else. And Indiana has a bunch of NFL players too. So
we have a big pick show coming on Monday too. So let's not forget that we're going to dig into that. But I will spoil it a little bit and say that I could see a world where Miami drags Ohio State into a game that feels similar to the one that we saw.
Well, let's think about this with Ohio State, and we can talk about the quarterfinals because I think the quarterfinal matchups are pretty fun. But when Ohio State has had to play teams that are built very solidly on the line of scrimmage, 14-7 win against Texas. They lost to Indiana. Penn State was close at halftime, at least. And that was a zombie team that had fired its coach. Michigan was close at halftime. So, yes, Miami could drag them into a game for sure. Ohio State is more talented than Miami. Ohio State is probably the better team than Miami. But this could be a very interesting game.
Yeah. And, I know that we're still waiting for the spread of that game. If someone knows it in the chat, it might have been released. I don't know what it is. I would imagine that Ohio State's probably a 7.5-point favorite, something like that, if I had to guess. They have the front seven to bother Ohio State. They have the front seven to bother Julian Sayin. And in a world where Ohio State scored 10 points against a very good defense, and I think you could make the case that Miami is similarly talented to Indiana on defense.
Yeah, the question is if Miami's DBs can run with Ohio State's receivers, and Indiana's did. So I think Miami's should have a chance.
Yeah, so we're seeing 9.5 and 6.5. I guess 7.5 was a good guess. I don't know which one's correct, but both make sense.
I'm trying to call it up right now.
I'm assuming that it's more than a touchdown. Ohio State is rarely, favored by less than a touchdown. But, I also love the historical element to this too.
Oh, yeah.
Because, I think you could also draw a straight line to where things fell
fairly
off.
significant Miami-Ohio State game.
Yeah.
That was the last time Miami was really on this stage.
And it was the last. People will say
All
that
right,
Ohio
I got
State
it on
broke them.
BetMGM right now. I'm looking at the BetMGM
What's the official
app.
line?
Ohio State minus 9.5.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, maybe Ohio State broke Miami, but listen, what were the circumstances of that game?
I don't think Ohio State broke Miami. I think the sport changed on Miami, and it was harder for Miami to compete. Miami, a small private school, did not have the wealthy alums that a lot of the larger state schools with bigger alumni bases had, and it was harder for them to keep up. And then, sure enough, they find some extra cash. Their healthcare center starts making a bunch of money, and then the NIL era starts, and now all of a sudden they're back in the game.
And what was the spread of the Ohio State Miami game in 2002? Do you recall?
I don't remember that.
I remember.
Yeah, tell me.
14.5.
Was it 14.5? Wow.
And Ohio State was dicking around with Purdue all year.
Well,
so there's another touchdown for Oregon.
For Oregon,
and
not for JMU. No 28-point run. So sorry about that.
And we can both just take a sigh of relief here because we were going to see it through to the end if it was close.
Yes.
But Andy did say, get ready. We might be sitting here for 2 more hours. And hey, listen, JMU can march right back down and put us back in the danger zone. But, they play the game for a reason, though.
Yeah.
That Ohio State team, we found out, was one of the most talented teams.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's funny now. Probably the reason I didn't remember the spread is because I do remember how talented that Ohio State team ended up being, like how many NFL players it produced. It was actually on par with that Miami team in terms of NFL production.
Yeah.
So this was what we didn't understand going into that game was it was really 2 evenly matched teams.
And I can understand why, people might say hammer Ohio State, but I also can understand, why they play the game. The games matter during the regular season. They certainly matter now. Yeah. So I'm excited I get to go to that game. It's in Dallas. It's going to be a great time. And
I get to go to Texas Tech against, we're pretty sure, Oregon.
I think Oregon. Don't
Orange
jinx
Bowl.
us like you did on Friday night.
Yeah. Well, can I say that? Because we don't know the Texas Tech Oregon is the Orange Bowl matchup, though we suspect it is. But I am excited about these quarterfinal games. I feel like every one of them could be good. I'm sure there will be a blowout or maybe even 2. But I feel like there's a potential for classics in a couple of them.
And we didn't say this at the beginning, and somebody left a super chat, and I didn't want to. It's hard because we're further away. There is a difference between a blowout and being overmatched.
Yes, blowouts can happen. Like
blowouts happen.
Clemson, Alabama after the 2018 season, that national title game, 44-18.
Nobody's saying avoid blowouts. Blowouts happen in sports. They happen in the NFL. They happen in college. But if a blowout happens as a result of your team not playing well or a bunch of turnovers or somebody getting injured, that's different than putting out 11 guys on the field that aren't physically capable of competing. Yeah. And that's the line that I wanted to make sure that we acknowledge, because blowouts are going to be a major part of the sport. Forever. It's been a tradition. We're not going to ever avoid those. But anyway, the point you were making.
The quarterfinals look great. So one rematch, right? That would be Georgia and Ole Miss in the Sugar Bowl. The first version of that game was in Athens. Not a ton of defense played. Not a lot of punting in that game. I don't think Ole Miss ever stopped Georgia in that game, and Georgia only stopped Ole Miss a couple times there at the end. But that was very exciting. It was kind of when Georgia's offense felt like it got unlocked, and Gunnar Stockton ascended a little bit.
Yeah,
it was a fun game. I could stand to watch that again. But the other ones, we think Oregon, Texas Tech, Alabama, Indiana.
Are you saying we think because they haven't won yet?
Yes, that's why I say that.
That's so nice of you.
I'm trying. Look,
he's got a heart of gold.
After last night,
yeah.
Ari, I can't be sure of anything. So, but Alabama will be playing Indiana, and then we'll see about the Orange Bowl, and then of course you have in the Cotton Bowl Miami and Ohio State. So I like all those matchups. I think there's potential for fun. There's some upset potential in there. Like for Alabama to upset Indiana, I think Alabama would have to be the best version of itself.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only way. because Indiana's so disciplined and Alabama's so hit or miss. Like I would
We struggle with it.
I would
Alabama.
suspect Indiana wins that game, but there was a period of Alabama last night, most of the third quarter, well, second and third quarter, really.
The end of the second quarter, into the third, yeah.
That team, that version of it, can compete with Indiana.
Yeah, and I don't know what team Alabama is.
Which again,
yeah.
it is still mind-boggling to me to say that sentence out loud. That if Alabama does this, it can compete with Indiana. I mean, that tells you how different this sport is.
Yeah. This is funny because I agree with this from Adrian here in the chat. The thing I hate about college football is people enjoy complaining more than the games. These quarterfinals look great, but nothing but complaining. Yeah, complaining is also a fabric of
It's also
game.
a sport.
Yeah, I'm pretty good at complaining.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's also part of it, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm really excited about the quarterfinals. Like, you're going to be at the Cotton Bowl. I'm doing the Orange Bowl. I'm going to be with the family on Friday night in the Keys watching the Orange Bowl. Like, I can't, or watching the Cotton Bowl.
Humble brag.
I cannot think of a more fun way to spend. Like, it's their vacation. I got to work, but let's be real, I don't have a real job. But being able to watch that game feels like such a treat. Matchup in a high stakes game.
That the perfect playoff is 8 teams, and we have to deal with this bad weekend to get to the 8.
Yeah,
that's fine. We have 8. This is
well,
going to be a good
playoff. Though,
playoff.
if they went to 16 and you did a pure 16 team field where you didn't have the stupid double buys that they've talked about, and it was 16-1, 15-2, I actually think if you went down the list, and even if you did it where there was a group of 5 team like Tulane had to be number 16, the 15-2 game might be competitive in this, because it would have been Vanderbilt and Ohio State. I wouldn't mind seeing Vandy, Ohio State.
Yeah. And, after that first round, you would have the purest 8 teams possible.
Yeah.
So,
especially I think probably from seeds 3 on would have gone through a gauntlet to even get there.
The other thing too about these first round games, and I've been curious because I wanted to ask you. You and I got into a little bit of a tizzy over the Georgia. Should they play or should they want to play?
Yeah. I was wrong.
I wanted to ask you this.
Yeah,
I was in the shower.
Of course you were,
letting the warm water trickle down my backside.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, because I was watching. In this hotel room, you can peer through the glass and still see the TV. I was watching it while I was soaping myself.
It's a nice hotel.
I actually thought, Andy, do you think that it's better for a team to play a JMU-ish type game where they run up a score like this and get their starters out in the middle of the third quarter and feel good than it is to have a complete bye week and be off that long?
Well, I've said the whole time that Oregon feels like they're in the best position. It's like Oregon, which had to sit there and get rusty and then get buzzsawed by Ohio State last year, is in the buzzsaw position this year.
Because Mario Cristobal was saying something about how they handled their time off because they didn't play in the ACC championship game, and they had to talk to the team physicians and the medical science people and continue a routine that kept their bodies in shape. They practiced hard. They did everything they could so that they stayed in a rhythm.
I have to plug the computer in.
This is an important
I've
thing.
done a terrible job tonight. Terrible job.
But the thing about that, guys, is that I do believe that there is something to do with rhythm and motion and staying in a position to. I wish you guys could see this.
They can. Knocking everything over.
Staying in the groove and getting to a place where you feel good about yourself in the next game. And I think that Oregon had that opportunity tonight in this blowout win. Now, obviously, wear and tear on bodies and all those things is something to think about. And of course, the risk of injury, which, in this day and age when teams aren't as deep as they've been in the past, you have to worry about that sort of thing. But if they can get out of this game with starters, healthy and their bodies, in that same routine, then I think going into the New Year's situation, their game against Texas Tech, they're not going to be as rusty or, unready to play as they were against Ohio State. So I do think that, this whole, should they get a bye or should they be the 5 seed situation is an interesting and funny debate. So, on to the next game, Andy, as you plug this in. The Ohio State-Miami game next week. It's going to be great. Ohio State's offensive line is their number one weakness, and Miami actually has a defensive front and a front seven that can stop them. And I've been thinking a lot about what Ohio State, how they could be slayed, for like a sci-fi word, and like this big, huge behemoth of a human versus a little tiny person. Is there like one spot where you can push on Ohio State's chest to make the whole thing fall over? And I think their offensive line and rattling Julian Sand. And I think that's what Indiana did last week. And I really believe that Miami could duplicate that. I do.
That's the thing. And I said this about Miami and Texas A&M, that they're both built so sturdily on both lines of scrimmage that I was excited about whoever wound up coming out of this game to play against Ohio State, because that's what seems to have been how you rattle Ohio State, how you deal with Ohio State, how you compete with Ohio State, is you have to be very solidly constructed on the line of scrimmage.
And you would have felt that way about A&M, because I thought that the open field
I did feel that way about A&M.
Was electric.
Mm-hmm.
They were hitting hard. They were arriving at the football, all the things. So, yeah, the point you were making, I'm 100% on board with.
Yeah, so I'm excited about that. Again, Oregon, Texas Tech, I'm pumped to see, because what's been going on tonight is Oregon has not been stopped at all by JMU's defense. Texas Tech has a defense that is on par with the best defenses in this tournament. What we saw from Miami today, what we saw from Texas A&M today, what we thought we were going to get out of Oklahoma's pass rush, what we've seen from Ohio State all year. Like, Texas Tech has been utterly dominant defensively. And I wonder if are we going to get an Orange Bowl that looks a little bit like the game we saw in College Station today?
I think we might. Oregon is a very funny team, because sometimes it looks like this.
Yep.
Where they're just running up and down the field. Every time you look up at the screen, there's somebody in green and gold running all over the place. And sometimes, they play in a game like they did against Indiana, which, by the way, were held to 10 points. So Texas Tech's number one unit is their defense.
Mm-hmm.
They've got outstanding individual players.
David Bailey, Lee Hunter, like this is the reason you assembled this roster, to compete with a team like Oregon.
Yeah.
And that's what makes this fun. Alabama, Indiana, we talked about. I think the version of Alabama we saw in the second and third quarter last night can absolutely play with Indiana. The version we saw in the first and fourth quarters, maybe not, probably not.
Yeah.
And then, the Georgia Ole Miss game, we've already seen it. A second version, just like Ole Miss Tulane, by the way, was a carbon copy of the first version. If we get a carbon copy of the Georgia Ole Miss game with maybe one turnover tossed in for good measure,
the result could change.
The result could change, and it'll be fun. It'll be the opposite of what you saw in College Station today.
Yeah, exactly. So, and we'll have a full preview of these games in our picks on Monday.
Yeah.
Andy, want to go to Kenny?
Let's start with how we got to Kenny.
Okay, yes.
So Michigan's still looking for a coach. It became a little more imperative for them to look harder than Kalen DeBoer after Kalen DeBoer wins against Oklahoma on Friday night, because Kalen DeBoer's got a coach in the Rose Bowl. The Michigan fans seem convinced that Michigan's going after Kalen DeBoer, maybe even still going. Guys, you're not getting him. He's not leaving. So that's out. Kenny Dillingham seemed like the logical next person to call. Now, we talked to someone today who told us that Kenny basically had decided middle of last week that, and not in a presumptive way, not like Michigan's going to offer me the job and I'm going to turn it down. Because I don't know if Michigan ever even got to the point of offering Kenny the job. I don't know how seriously they even talked about anything. Kenny basically decided, from what we were told last week, middle of last week, I'm happy here. I would like to stay here. I would like to be at Arizona State. And it's been a few weeks, actually a 2-month process to get to the contract that they agreed upon. And I believe it was on Friday night that they agreed to terms.
Yeah. And, the home pool there is real. I think it really is.
Yeah. He's from Scottsdale, which is, a 10-minute drive from Tempe. He's living at home. His in-laws are right next, I believe, either next door in the same neighborhood. His parents are right close by. So it's very comfortable where he is.
Yeah. And I think they built a house recently in a really nice area. And, having grown up there, I can only imagine how beautiful it is. Like it's a good spot. But, I think too that being the greatest coach in Arizona State history is important to him. So,
And it's something he can possibly do.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got we're early in the game.
And I know
he
that
can do it.
Arizona State didn't have a great year, but I thought his coaching job, you could have even made a case that it was better this year than it was last year. I mean, they were winning games with Jeff Sims at quarterback at the end.
Yeah.
So, but this led to, well, do you want to do Michigan and where Michigan's going first, or do you want to finish Kenny?
Let's finish Kenny, then we'll
Okay.
talk Michigan more.
So Kenny had a address to the media and basically a public plea for financial
have we
support.
ever seen a coach do this before?
No.
I was going to say, I don't think I've ever seen it.
And I think that, part of the resentment of the current game of college football from fans is that why is it their responsibility to be the ones that, foot the bill on this? But
Yeah.
then I think he was talking or trying to.
He wasn't talking to the casual fan.
Yeah, he was talking
he
to the
basically
mega
said,
booster.
there has to be someone here in this beautiful valley that can stroke a $20 million check, which, listen,
the fat check.
Ari, we've covered a lot of schools. I mean, you and I have been beat writers covering Big Ten and SEC schools. Like, I cover Florida. When I covered Florida's beat writer, I don't know that they had a lot of people capable of writing a check that big. They may not have had anybody capable of writing a check that big back in the mid 2000s.
Well, if you are in Arizona and you want to write a check that big, you can be the Arizona State equivalent of Cody Campbell.
Yes. Yeah. And for those who don't know, Cody Campbell is the former Texas Tech offensive lineman. He's an oil and gas billionaire, and he's funding the Texas Tech roster right now. And they are here in the playoff. They're the Big 12 champ. And
it's basically his team.
They looked night and day different than the rest of the Big 12.
And I think Kenny even said in his address, Andy, that he'll make you famous. So that's also a part of it.
He will. I think having the capability to stroke a $20 million check, there's probably a level of fame already attached to you, or at least somewhat, notoriety. Renown.
When you go to the grocery store, they have those magazines that are free that they put on the shelves in the front.
Yes,
that you can just grab. And
the penny saver.
Whatever it is. One time I was grocery shopping with my mother, and the cover read the 10 most richest people in the valley and their source of wealth. And I found that interesting as a 14-year-old boy.
Yeah.
I grabbed it and I opened it. And I think 7 of the people out of the 10 said source of wealth, Berkshire Hathaway stock. I don't know how famous you are.
All right. Yeah, so if you've been following Warren Buffett and buying up his stock for a while, then Kenny Dillingham wants to talk to you.
Yeah, and you can get dividends in a different way, which is helping a college football team win more games.
But yeah, what's interesting about that is if Kenny Dillingham had decided, and again, I don't think Michigan ever offered him the job, but had they gotten down the road and he decided he wanted to go to Michigan, he never would have had to ask that. Michigan has those people. Michigan has people with the capability to do that. He chose to stay at home and make that ask instead of going to the place where he never has to make that ask.
You know how much you have to love a place to do that?
Yeah, because that's not an easy thing to do. It's not something I mean, imagine most coaches are too proud to do it.
Especially if you feel like an offer could be coming around a corner from a place that you would never have to do that.
Yeah. So where does this leave Michigan? Because there are not a lot of obvious candidates. Jeff Brom, whose name popped up in the Penn State search, in the Florida search, he's the Louisville coach. I think he's a fabulous coach. The man took Purdue to the Big Ten title game. He tends to make every quarterback he has better. I think he could be a very good fit at Michigan. His name has popped up. We've talked about Jed Fish. We've talked about Jesse Mentor, the former defensive coordinator. I got some info the other day from somebody involved who said Jesse Mentor's his show cause is not going to be an issue because it expired on December 15th. And even if it hadn't expired, you've got your old friend Jeremy Pruitt, who just won an injunction in court in Alabama against the NCAA, who, it may be that nobody's show cause gets enforced. So there are options still for Michigan. It's just not as cut and dried. And I'm not sure there's anybody who's a favorite among the fan base. I have noticed a push from current players and some former players to have their interim coach, Biff Poggi, just take the team for at least a year.
Yeah, give him a year.
I'm curious how you feel about that, because if it's only for a year, I would assume even in the transfer portal, that people will recruit against you using that. Like what, that's just for your now. Like if you're a person who's only got 1 year of eligibility left, then why do you care? If you like Biff Poggi, you go play for him.
I mean, then my mind starts fantasizing about different things that you could do.
Biff Poggi sleeveless at Michigan, because he did it as Charlotte's head coach. Could you go sleeveless as Michigan's head coach for a game?
I mean, if you're essentially,
I'm serious here.
If you're essentially punting on the season for a 1 year experiment because you missed the window of coaches, could you approach a hot shot young coordinator and say, "Listen, I'll give you a 1 year tryout"?
Well, you wouldn't call it a 1 year tryout.
Yeah.
So, like when Mike Leach passed away and Mississippi State gave Zach Arnett, who was the defensive coordinator, that job, touchdown Oregon again. So yeah, we're not worried about the upset anymore. But when Mike Leach passed away, Mississippi State gives Zach Arnett the job. They gave him a multi-year contract, but it was one of those where they could pull the ripcord pretty quickly, and they did. They didn't feel like he was the right guy long term. He lasted less than a year.
Well, how many coaches would sign a 1 year deal? Yeah.
How many coordinators?
Yeah.
If Michigan offered them 1 year deal?
Yeah. Would that be an attractive thing, or would that be too scary?
It would be too scary for ones that are in position to maybe get a Michigan type job, but there's a next level where they bet on themselves. And the thing is, you're Michigan, you're rich. You didn't pay Sharon Moore a penny to fire him. You can give somebody a 5 year deal, not guarantee a ton of it, and essentially give somebody a 1 year tryout that is dressed up as not a 1 year tryout.
Yeah. And the reward for failing the 1 year tryout is a buyout.
Correct.
That you're willing to pay.
Correct. And if you hit and you find the next great assistant coach who's going to be the next great head coach, whether that's the next Dan Lanning or the next Ryan Day or the next Kirby Smart, then you won if you're Michigan. And if you didn't, then you paid the buyout and you get into the next cycle as the best job in the cycle for the full cycle.
Yeah. So, I mean, it looks like they have options. And the Wetzel tweet. Dan Wetzel from Yahoo Sports tweeted, and I don't know if you have it up, but I'm going to just paraphrase it here.
Yeah.
Hey, guys, obviously something can change at any given time, but I would not expect a resolution to the Michigan coaching search anytime soon.
Which sounds like a reset to me. It sounds like, okay, guys, let's dial this thing back and figure out what we want here. Figure out what we're willing to do, who we're willing to hire, and let's reset this whole thing. Because we've named some names. I think Eli Drinkwitz from Missouri would be another name that you'd maybe talk to in this group. But I don't actually have a problem with this because the transfer portal doesn't open until January 2nd. You've got a week and a half. If you really wanted to reset this thing and go in a week from now with a serious list of candidates, you could talk to everybody because they've hired Turnkey, the search firm. Chad Chatlos is the guy who runs that. Chad has vetted almost everybody who's been up for a job over the last 10 years.
So they should get a discount.
Well, it's not just that. It's as Scott Strickland, the Florida athletic director who used Turnkey in this search, put it to me, a lot of the homework had been done for them, they felt like.
Yeah.
In terms of vetting, in terms of, are there skeletons that we need to know about, that sort of thing. It helped them narrow the field pretty quickly. Chad can help them narrow the field if they give him parameters. Yeah. But I think if you're Michigan, you've got to figure out your parameters, and you may be reconstructing them at this point.
Yeah. But it'll be certainly something that we are going to be tracking through the holiday season. And, Dan's tweet was.
And Wetzel's very plugged in at Michigan.
Yeah.
So I don't doubt him one bit.
But it also, like, anytime soon could mean 2 days or 10 days.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like,
I'm just fascinated because that leads me to believe that it's probably not any of the names that we keep talking about.
Yeah, and it might be somebody that's off the radar, which
here's
would be
the here's the other possibility. And this is, I'm just putting the tinfoil hat on here. What if they've ID'd an NFL coach and that person can't come until after the NFL regular season?
What do you do? If that were true, how would you do that?
Well, you would probably ask that NFL coach who their GM would be, hire that person as your GM, install them, and get them working on the roster right now.
When Urban Meyer took the Ohio State job, I found out that he was going to be the head coach because a recruit said he called him and told him.
Mm-hmm.
I guess you could do that.
You could do that. And some portal recruit might let the cat out of the bag. But if you let the cat out of the bag with an NFL coach who's not, clearly not in the playoffs and finishing up in the first week of January, who cares?
Yeah. What week are we in the NFL this weekend?
There are 2 weeks left after this week.
Okay.
So
It's not a rule. You're not
there's
breaking
the week of Christmas, and then there's the following week, and then that's it.
Yeah. So we're almost there. So it's wild though.
But that's what can I put my tinfoil hat back on?
Sure.
It was on the show. I brought up my John Harbaugh theory on the show, right?
You did, yeah.
Okay. Like, I don't know that it would be him, but that would make a lot of sense.
I think it would make a lot of sense in one aspect, and I think it would be a terrible idea in another.
I don't think that's who it is, because I also think John Harbaugh's earned the right to leave. Well, I guess he would be leaving Baltimore of his own accord in that case, but I also think he's earned the right to coach as long as he wants to in the NFL. And if he left Baltimore, I would think multiple other NFL teams would want him.
I agree. And I think that we would have heard his name from somebody in the NFL. Like, that is definitely a tinfoil hat move.
I mean, and maybe it's an NFL coordinator that has been ID'd, but that would assume that they have ID'd somebody. It seems to me, again, just reading tea leaves here, that this feels like a reset of, hey, let's rein it back in, stop panicking, stop running around like chickens with their heads cut off, and sit down and decide, this is what we want in the next head football coach. Here are the people who fit that profile. Let's talk to them.
Bingo.
I'm fascinated to see where they go. I think this is going to be as interesting as these playoffs are. I am just as interested in what Michigan does next, because it's such a strange situation. The firing of Sherrone Moore was obviously very bizarre, and we're going to have to wait and see what they do. But I don't think it's. I do not believe, Ari. Tell me. I don't believe that coaches are looking at the Michigan job and going, oh God, I don't want that job. I think the specific coaches, one, Kalen DeBoer has as good or better of a job at Alabama and does not want to be viewed as the person who ran away from the succession of Nick Saban when he openly chose it. I don't believe he's going to leave, so that doesn't make sense. Kenny Dillingham has very good reasons to stay home, to want to make it work at Arizona State. Very good reasons. Everybody else feels like fair game.
I think they can rattle some cages. It's a very attractive job, maybe a top 10 job in America. Anytime that opens, regardless of how convenient it is, they'll figure it out. They'll figure something out.
Yeah. Guys, this has been awesome. So for those who haven't heard our travel schedule, haven't been following along with us on social media all weekend, Ari and I met up yesterday in Dallas. We drove to Norman, Oklahoma. We covered the Oklahoma-Alabama game. We drove to Ardmore, Oklahoma, wrote stories, slept an hour and 45 minutes, got up and drove to College Station, covered an amazing game between Miami and Texas A&M. This has been so much fun.
It was a really, really terrible idea that turned out to be a beautiful.
It was so bad.
Yeah.
But I'll point out, so my friend Ross Dellinger from Yahoo, who had one of my co-hosts on the College Football Inquirer show, so he was planning on also being with us at the Texas A&M game. His plan was to fly, and so he had a flight from Oklahoma City that went through Dallas, Fort Worth, and then a connecting flight to College Station. He gets to Dallas, Fort Worth. I felt so terrible because we were already in Waco by the time he called. And he said, are you near DFW? And I said, no, we're about an hour and a half past it. And he said, my flight is delayed at least 2 hours, probably going to be delayed more. I don't know if I'm going to make it. And he ended up having to go home to DC. The plane that was going to take him to College Station eventually landed in College Station, I think 5 minutes after the game ended. I said this to Ross, and I mean it, Ari. If we can pull this off next year, I want to rent a van, and whatever sports writer wants to come with us, on the drive, because we did this last year where we drove from South Bend to Columbus. If there are 2 sites we can drive between from Friday to Saturday, whatever sports writers want to come with us, we'll rent a big van. I'll drive. I get the aux cord because I'm driving.
Cruising America van.
Absolutely, a conversion van.
Oh no, that's the trailer. It's not a trailer.
Oh,
it's a camper.
You know what? I'll get a party bus. I'll get like a Sprinter van.
Yeah,
and you guys just party in the back.
Yeah,
and
that'd be great.
And I'm driving. I love this so much, and that's part of what frustrates me about what's going on in the Oregon game. And obviously, if it's 48-13 right now with 3:13 to go in the third quarter, Oregon is on the doorstep again. If JMU makes the biggest and greatest comeback of all time, we will go live again, I promise. But that's part of this. Like getting to see these games is such a joy and a privilege, and I want more of it. Like if we could do 4 games in the first weekend, I'd do it.
Yeah, I mean we would have. I mean if there were more spread out, I don't know what the schedule would look like if it goes to 16 teams. Maybe they'll have a 3-day event. I don't know, but
it's a pick, maybe a pick 6.
But yeah, next year would be a
not
nice
a pick
time.
6.
Yeah, it would have been 54-13. So,
but it's not.
It's not. So we'll keep.
Okay, greatest comeback in the world. Still a possibility. If that happens, we'll go live. We promise. But thank you so much for taking this journey with us. It's been so much fun. Thank you to BetMGM. Thank you to Modelo. And we will talk to you on Sunday. We're going to talk each quarterfinal matchup in a separate video. And who knows? Maybe something happens with the Michigan search. Maybe there's a little more intel that we can share. And also Monday, we're picking the quarterfinal games. We've got lines for all those games, except one, because Oregon and JMU aren't done yet. But we've got lines for the other games. We'll have line for the Orange Bowl tomorrow. So on Monday, we'll be picking the quarterfinal games, which I got to say, look pretty awesome. So we will talk to you on Sunday, preview the quarterfinal games. And again, hey, if anything pops with Michigan, we'll be right there live and we'll talk about it all.